Hello, Grant Roberts here. Welcome to the third tutorial in this developing a computer game using C#. Well, here's the code that is behind the design of the form. There's the form, and here's the code that is automatically generated by the system. We're going to be adding to this shortly. Now, what's the first problem that we face in implementing this game after we've got the graphics? I think it's arguable, but perhaps the first thing we need to do is ensure that when the game runs, the player knows what to do. So we give the player some information about what the game is. We can do this by what we call a splash box, or in this particular language is called a message box. It's a modal message box, which simply means that it has to be clicked before the player can proceed. And so this is how we go about that. We need to know a little bit about C# and its language, and we also need to know where to launch this message box from. Form load, or form 1 load to put it precisely as a name, here is where we put the code we want. The code we want is message box. Because this is the kind of language it is, it's a capital letter. And message box, that's I think what Microsoft called IntelliSense, which you're seeing there, the context sensitive help. If I press the full stop on the keyboard, I get some options, and a method, as it's known, you might know this as a function or a procedure or a subroutine. Show is an option, and it turns out that show is a method, so it's got the two brackets, and well, we have to show something, and it's a string that is expected inside there. That's an empty string. But we said we'd put a message in there. Now, what kind of message should it be? Before we come to that, and you might think about that, we're just here going to put a little comment in. A comment with 2 forward slashes to say splashbox, to say it's the purpose of the game. Do you remember in the last tutorial, the first tutorial rather, we spoke about the 3 things you needed to know really for any game to make it happen. You had to know the player, the story, and the environment. Now in this case, one is telling the player the story straight up. What we need to say is what the game is about, and also how you can get points, lose points, and win. Now hopefully we'll already have decided upon this at a design stage. Let's say we go back to here, that when the apple hits the basket, that is a score. That is, we score a mark, or a point. If it misses the basket and comes down to this point, or lower, then that is a miss and it loses a point. That could be a good scoring system. Now most games also have a win-lose scenario. That is, you win when you get so many points in this context, or you lose when you miss so many apples. Now I'm going to keep that option open because it kind of complicates the game a little bit. Let's keep the scoring simple at this stage to how to score a point and how to lose a point, and we just tell the player about that. In other words, we have the game eternal. It never ends. It never finishes. Okay, so what can we put in here? Well, I would say we need to say what is actually happening, and what is actually happening is that apples drop from a tall tree and the player scampers about left to right with the basket to catch them. Let's see this in action. if we just run this. Apple's, there we go, there's that message. I click OK and up pops the game. Now we want to put a title to this little splash box, so I'm going to put a comma and just press enter because I want to carry this on to the next line. I'm going to put another couple of quotes in there, and this will be the title. You can see a little help coming up there, I hope. And I'm just going to say catcher, and I might say, I don't know, about catcher. Later on we would put this into a menu system inside the form, just like you can see at the moment up here. Here's a menu system for Visual Studio. There, we could put something up there like that, but for the moment we use the splash screen. So what would that look like? Let's have a look, and you can see it's now got about catcher. Now we should say something about scoring, so let's just go into here and pop it in here. You're going to find it scrolls to the right, and what this says, we'll have a look in a moment, and I just want you to see, can you predict what will happen? Right, so now it says apples drop from a tall tree and you scamper about left to right with a basket to catch them. A miss loses a point and a catch gains a point. How well can you do? Okay, and we get the game. I was going to tidy this up and put this comment just above the message box, so it looks a little bit neater. So we got the first part of information to the player about the game. That is, we're telling the player what the game is about and its purpose and really how to play the game. Clearly the next thing we really need to do is to make it so there's a game to play. So in the next tutorial we're going to actually show how one can move the basket from left to right